Maya didn't cry when they handed her the white envelope. She smiled, nodded, and even said, "I understand." Because that's what you do when your boss uses words like restructuring and nothing personal. But now, sitting in her half-empty apartment surrounded by cardboard boxes and echoes, she let the silence settle like dust. Her career, 5 years of caffeine-fueled late nights, hopeful promotions, and endless presentations, was over in a single conversation. Outside her window, the city pulsed like nothing had changed. People still hurried to work. Delivery bikes still weaved through traffic. Life, it seemed, hadn't noticed that hers had quietly collapsed. She wrapped her hands around her last cup of coffee from the corner cafe, the one she used to visit every morning before work. It had already gone cold. "You're not supposed to feel this empty," she whispered to no one. Her phone buzzed. Another message from her mom. "You could come stay here for a bit, sweetie. Fresh air might help." Fresh air. That phrase lingered. By evening, Maya had packed 2 suitcases, a sketchbook, and her favorite mug. She didn't know exactly where she was going, just that she couldn't stay. The drive out of the city was quiet. As the skyscrapers faded into rolling hills, she realized she'd forgotten what silence actually sounded like. No honking, no chatter, just the wind against her car and the distant hum of her thoughts. When she finally reached the coastal town of Willow Bay, the air smelled faintly of salt and something sweet, like baked bread and sea breeze. She found a small rental cottage with pale blue shutters and a porch that creaked with charm. It wasn't much, but for the first time in weeks, Maya exhaled without feeling like she was breaking. She spent the first night unpacking, then sat on the porch wrapped in a blanket, watching the horizon fade from orange to violet. Somewhere in the distance, waves crashed softly against the rocks. For the first time in months, she wasn't thinking about deadlines or emails or the next step. She was just there. Tomorrow, she told herself, she'd find coffee. A new morning, maybe even a new version of herself. But tonight, it was enough just to breathe. The next morning, sunlight crept through the thin curtains of Maya's cottage, painting soft gold across her unpacked boxes. For a moment, she forgot where she was, until she heard the gulls outside and smelled the ocean through the cracked window. Willow Bay was nothing like the city. No honking cars, no rush-hour chaos. Just slow footsteps, laughter from nearby porches, and the rhythmic hush of the sea. Still in a sweater and messy bun, Maya slipped out to explore. Her breath caught when she reached the edge of town, past pastel storefronts, hanging flower baskets, and hand-painted signs that looked like they belonged in a storybook. That's when she saw it. Seabird Cafe. A chalkboard out front read. Teacup with handle open hearts, open cups. She smiled despite herself. That's either poetic, or very bad marketing. Inside, the air smelled like vanilla and roasted beans. Wooden shelves lined with plants and books filled the corners, and the low hum of soft acoustic music made the space feel alive yet peaceful. Behind the counter stood a man with rolled-up sleeves and tousled hair, scribbling on a notepad. He looked up when she entered, and his eyes were the kind of calm that made people forget they were nervous. "Morning," he said. His voice was warm, quiet, but steady. "First time here." "Is it that obvious?" she asked. He smiled. "You hesitated at the door. Locals just walk in. Visitors, take a breath first." Maya laughed. "Caught me. What's your drink?" "Oh, caramel latte. Large. Unless you judge people by their coffee order." "Only if they add whipped cream." She raised a brow. "Whipped cream is sacred." He grinned. "Then I'll keep my judgment to myself." He moved behind the espresso machine with the ease of someone who'd done it 1,000 times. Maya found a seat by the window, her favorite kind. The glass looked out at the ocean, where sunlight shimmered on the water like scattered gold. When he brought her drink over, she noticed the tiny bird drawn in the foam. "Cute," she said, surprised. "Latte art." He shrugged. "I like giving people something extra." She took a sip. The caramel was rich, smooth, comforting. The kind of taste that felt like exhaling after a long week. "I'm Liam," he said, setting a napkin beside her cup. "Owner, barista, part-time artist. Sometimes all 3 at once." "Maya," she said, smiling for the first real time in a while. "Unemployed, caffeine-dependent, trying not to overthink everything." He chuckled. "That's a good start." They talked for a few minutes, nothing deep, just weather, favorite drinks, the town's small quirks. But something about the ease of it made her chest feel a little lighter. When she finally stood to leave, Liam called out, "Same time tomorrow." Maya paused, pretending to think.
We'll see.
But as she walked down the street, caramel warmth still on her tongue, she already knew she'd be back. By the third morning, it had become a rhythm. Maya would walk to Seabird Cafe, her sweater sleeves pulled over her hands, the sea breeze tugging at her hair. The bell above the door would chime softly, and Liam would already be behind the counter. Steady, focused, a little bit too good at remembering. "Let me guess," he said as she approached. "Caramel latte, no whipped cream. Even though you defend it like it's a human right." Maya laughed. "I don't like feeling predictable." "Then surprise me," he said, eyes glinting with challenge. She tilted her head. "Fine. What's your recommendation?" He paused dramatically. "The ocean mist." "That sounds like perfume." "It's coffee with sea salt and honey. Trust me." Maya hesitated, then nodded. "Okay. Impress me, barista." While he worked, she took her usual seat by the window. A couple of kids played outside chasing gulls, and an old man read the newspaper with the focus of someone guarding national secrets. The cafe was alive, yet calm, like the world had finally slowed down to match her pace. When Liam set the cup down, the foam had a swirl of pale blue sugar dust, shimmering faintly under the light. "Whoa," she said. "Is that edible glitter?" He smirked. "Classified ingredient." She took a cautious sip, and blinked. "That's actually amazing." "Told you," he said, clearly pleased. Maya leaned back, letting the warmth sink in. "You know, I used to drink coffee while staring at spreadsheets. Now I drink it while watching waves. Huge improvement." Spreadsheets. Marketing job. City life. Deadlines, fake smiles, and the feeling that your brain's always buffering. Liam nodded. "I know the feeling. Used to work corporate design before this place." "Wait, you left that for this?" "Yep." He looked around the cafe like it was his whole world. "Never been happier." Maya watched him for a moment. There was something grounding about the way he spoke. No pretense, no rush, just quiet certainty. "You make it sound easy," she said. He shook his head. "Not easy. Just right." For a second, she didn't answer. The words stayed with her long after he walked away to help another customer. When she finally left the cafe, she noticed something scribbled on the napkin he'd placed beside her cup. "The second cup's always better. Come back tomorrow." She smiled all the way back to her cottage, holding the napkin like a secret she wasn't ready to explain. The forecast had promised light showers. It lied. By late afternoon, rain came in sideways sheets, hammering the windows of Seabird Cafe and turning Willow Bay streets into rivers. Maya ducked inside, dripping and breathless, hair plastered to her forehead. Liam looked up from behind the counter, half laughing. "Guessing you didn't bring an umbrella." "I thought coastal rain was supposed to be romantic," she said, shaking off water. "This feels like nature's personal attack." He handed her a towel. "You're safe in here. I'm closing up anyway. No one's walking in this weather." "Good call," she said, glancing around the now empty cafe. The lights were low, golden against the storm-dark windows. It felt cocooned. Safe. She sat near the counter, cradling the cup he set in front of her. It wasn't her usual order. It was something rich and dark, topped with cinnamon. "What's this?" she asked. "How special," Liam said. "For emergencies only." "Is torrential rain an emergency?" He smiled faintly. "Only if you're in denial about needing a break." Maya took a sip. It was strong, slightly sweet, the kind of flavor that lingered. "You might be right." For a few minutes, they just listened, to the rain, the wind, the occasional creak of the wooden beams. The world outside had vanished into gray. "So," Liam said finally, leaning on the counter, "what made you leave the city?" Maya hesitated. "A job. Or the lack of one, really." He nodded slowly, waiting. She set her cup down, fingers tracing the rim. "I thought I was building something solid. Years of work. Dedication. Then one day, it just ended. They said it wasn't personal, but it felt like losing a piece of myself." Her voice faltered. "I came here because I didn't know what else to do." The words hung in the air, small but heavy. Liam nodded, quiet for a beat. "Then, you're not alone in that." She looked up. "You?" "Yeah. I used to design ad campaigns. Sleek, soulless, profitable." His smile was faint, but his eyes softened. Then one day I realized I'd built a life that looked good on paper and felt empty in person. Maya tilted her head. So you started a cafe? He chuckled. Not right away. First I panicked. Then I made really bad coffee for a year. Then I got better at both. She laughed, really laughed, and the sound filled the small room like sunlight. When the laughter faded, silence returned, but it was different this time, comfortable, even warm. Outside, the storm raged on, but inside, something had shifted. Maya leaned her chin on her hand. Do you ever miss it? The city, the rush. Liam shook his head. No. I traded noise for peace. Deadlines for moments like this. Her breath caught slightly. Moments like this. He smiled, gentle but sure. Yeah. Rain, coffee, company that doesn't feel forced. For a second, they just looked at each other. The world felt smaller, the air thicker. Then thunder cracked outside, startling her. She jumped, spilling a little coffee on her sleeve. Liam reached out instinctively, brushing her hand as he steadied the cup. Got it, he said softly. Thanks, she murmured, meeting his eyes. Neither of them moved right away. Eventually, he cleared his throat and stepped back, the corners of his mouth twitching. Storm's calming. You'll be able to get home soon. Yeah, she said, though part of her wasn't sure she wanted to leave just yet. When the rain finally faded to drizzle, Maya gathered her things. At the door, she glanced back. Liam was wiping down the counter, but he looked up just as she did. They shared a quiet smile, one that said more than either dared to put into words. Outside, puddles gleamed under streetlights. As Maya walked home, the storm behind her felt less like chaos and more like a beginning. The rain had passed, leaving Willow Bay washed clean. The next morning, sunlight glimmered on puddles like glass, and the air smelled new, salt and coffee and second chances. Maya walked to Seabird Cafe as usual, her steps lighter than they'd been in months. Liam looked up when she entered, that familiar, easy smile already waiting for her. Morning, he said, pouring her drink before she even asked. She grinned. You're getting predictable, you know. Or just reliable, he countered. She laughed, settling by the window. Everything about the cafe had become a quiet rhythm. Her seat, her cup, the hum of conversation, Liam's soft sarcasm. For the first time in a long time, she'd started to feel okay. Then her phone buzzed. A number she hadn't seen in weeks. Her old boss. Curiosity overrode hesitation. She answered softly, Hello? Maya. It's been a while. Listen, we've been doing some restructuring, good restructuring this time. We'd love to have you back. A senior position. Higher pay, flexible hours. What do you say? Her breath caught. A senior position. Her name on presentations again. Real projects, real deadlines. Recognition. But as her boss spoke, Maya looked around the cafe. At the sunlight pooling across wooden tables. At the sound of laughter from two regulars by the counter. At Liam, humming quietly while steaming milk, looking as if the world couldn't rush him even if it tried. Her old life and her new one blurred for a second. Can I think about it? She asked. Of course, came the reply. But don't take too long. We'd love to have you back on the team. When she hung up, the latte sat untouched. Liam glanced over. Everything okay? Maya tried to smile. Yeah. Just unexpected news. He nodded, not pushing. City stuff. Yeah, she admitted. A job offer. My old company wants me back. Sounds like a good thing. Maybe, she said softly. It used to be everything I wanted. Liam wiped his hands on a towel, his tone gentle. And now? Maya stared at the ocean outside, where the waves rolled in endless rhythm. Now I'm not sure I'm the same person who wanted it. Silence stretched between them, comfortable, but heavy with what wasn't being said. He finally spoke, voice low. Whatever you choose, make sure it's something that feels like you, not the version everyone else expects. She looked at him, eyes meeting his. You make that sound easy. It's not, he said. But it's worth it. When she left the cafe, the sky had turned gold. The wind carried a faint chill, and the sea whispered against the shore. Her phone buzzed again, another reminder of her old world waiting for an answer. Maya slipped it into her pocket. For now, she just kept walking. Maya barely slept that night. Her old boss's voice replayed in her head like an echo, steady, persuasive, familiar. A senior position. Recognition. Security. Everything she had worked for before it all fell apart. She sat by her window, watching the moonlight ripple across the waves, wondering when ambition had started to feel like a cage. By dawn, the decision still wasn't clear. So she did what had become her morning ritual. She went to Seabird Cafe. The streets were quiet, washed pale by the early light. A soft fog hung over Willow Bay, turning everything dreamlike. When she reached the cafe, the bell over the door didn't ring. It was unlocked, but empty. "Liam," she called softly. No answer. The counter was clean, the chairs still turned in from closing. The air smelled faintly of espresso and rain. Then she saw it, a folded note resting beside the espresso machine, weighted down by a small ceramic bird. Her heart skipped. She opened it carefully. "Maya. Didn't want to say this while you were deciding. You deserve to choose for you, not for anyone else, not even me. I don't know what you'll pick, but I do know this, you make this place brighter. You remind me why I left the noise behind. If you decide to stay, I'll be here. Maybe we could start something that's ours, not built from fear, but from choice. Either way, I hope you find your peace. Liam." Maya read it twice. Then again. Her throat tightened, and before she realized it, tears had gathered in her eyes. She looked around the empty cafe, the worn wooden counter, the shelves of succulents, the window seat where she'd spent mornings rediscovering herself. Everything here had started as an accident. A D2. But it had become home. She took a long breath, the kind that felt like exhaling months of uncertainty. Then, smiling through her tears, she whispered to the empty room, "I think I found it." A few hours later, the cafe bell finally chimed. Liam walked in, looking surprised. "You're still here." "I was waiting," she said simply. He hesitated. "And your job?" "I called them this morning," she said. "Told them I wasn't coming back." Liam blinked. "You sure?" Maya smiled, the kind of smile that came from the heart. "Positive. I realized something. Success isn't where you go. It's how you feel when you get there." For a long moment, neither spoke. The air was filled with the smell of fresh coffee, the sound of distant waves, and something else, possibility. Then Maya picked up 2 mugs from the counter and handed one to him. "Thought we could start the day together," she said. He looked down at the cups, then back at her, smiling softly. "Best decision you ever made." Outside, the fog began to lift, revealing the calm, glittering sea beyond the window. And for the first time in a long while, everything felt exactly right. A week later, the rhythm of Willow Bay had fully claimed Maya. Mornings began not with alarms or inboxes, but with sunlight on her face and the smell of coffee drifting through her open window. Her laughter came easier now, her steps slower, her mind quieter. And every morning, without fail, she found herself at Seabird Cafe. Liam had started opening earlier, just enough time for the two of them to share a cup before customers arrived. It became their secret hour. The world outside still half asleep, the sea whispering softly in the distance, and the two of them talking about everything and nothing. That morning, she found him by the counter, humming while wiping down the espresso machine. "You hum the same song every day," she said, smiling as she walked in. He glanced up. "It's not the same song. It's variations of the same feeling." "Which is?" she teased. He poured her drink, eyes warm. "Contentment." She laughed, taking the cup from him. "That's dangerously cheesy. Comes with the territory." They sat by the window, their window, watching the sunrise spill gold across the water. The same spot where Maya had once sat alone, clutching her coffee like a lifeline. Now, her hand brushed his across the table, fingers lingering in quiet certainty. "I've been thinking," she said softly, "about starting something new. Maybe a small marketing collective here in town. Helping local shops with design, online presence. You know, something good." Liam's face lit up. "That sounds perfect." She nodded. "It's small, but it feels right." He smiled. "The best things usually are." A comfortable silence followed. Outside, the waves kissed the shore in slow rhythm. Someone walked by with a dog, children laughed in the distance, and the cafe smelled like cinnamon and new beginnings. Maya looked at Liam, the way he focused when he listened, the way his eyes softened when she spoke, and felt something she hadn't in years. Not excitement. Not adrenaline. Something steadier. Peace. She raised her cup slightly. To second cups. He clinked his against hers. and second chances. They drank together as sunlight flooded the cafe, warm and golden. In that quiet moment, Maya realized life didn't always need grand gestures or dramatic choices. Sometimes, it was just a warm drink, a steady hand, and the courage to start again. And as Liam reached across the table, brushing his thumb over her fingers, she smiled and thought. This was what enough felt like. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more original novel stories. And stay tuned, our next story is coming soon.